The car's engine dies as she stands firm in front of the car, holding a photo of two identical boys. "They have your eyes," she says, watching his world crumble. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The Manhattan winter of 2009 was particularly brutal, with frigid winds slicing between skyscrapers like invisible knives. Yet for Maya Johnson, a 23-year-old from the Bronx, the city had never felt more welcoming. Standing in her cramped apartment shared with two roommates, she smoothed down the front of her best dress, a navy blue number purchased on sale 6 months ago, and applied a final touch of lipstick with shaking hands. "Big date tonight?" asked Tanya, one of her roommates, leaning against the bathroom doorframe. Maya smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's our 1-year anniversary. Ethan's taking me to 11 Madison Park." Tanya raised her eyebrows, impressed. "Fancy. The air's going all out." Maya had met Ethan Pierce at a publishing event where she'd been working as an editorial assistant. Despite their different worlds, she from a struggling neighborhood in the Bronx, he from old Manhattan money and the heir to Pierce Holdings, their connection had been immediate and intense. For the past year, Maya had felt like Cinderella living in a modern fairy tale, though she sometimes caught sideways glances from waiters or Ethan's friends that reminded her she didn't quite belong. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight, she had news that would change everything. The taxi dropped her at the gleaming entrance of 11 Madison Park, its windows glowing with warm light against the darkness of the winter evening. Inside, Ethan was already seated, his tall frame elegant in a tailored suit, blonde hair perfectly styled. When he saw her, his blue eyes lit up. Or did she imagine that slight hesitation? "Maya," he said, standing to kiss her cheek. "You look lovely." The maitre d' pulled out her chair with a practiced flourish, though Maya didn't miss his appraising glance, taking in her dress that, despite being her best, clearly hadn't come from Saks Fifth Avenue. "I ordered the Macallan 25 for myself," Ethan said, gesturing to the amber liquid in his crystal glass. "What would you like?" Maya's hand instinctively moved to her stomach. "Just water for now." As they moved through the courses of their exquisite meal, Maya's anxiety mounted. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and the delicate clink of fine china and crystal. Around them, New York's elite dined in casual opulence, a world Maya had only experienced through her relationship with Ethan. After the main course, as they waited for dessert, Maya gathered her courage. The 2 months of morning sickness, the doctor's confirmation, the nights lying awake wondering how to tell him, it all came down to this moment. "Ethan," she said softly, reaching for his hand across the table, "I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. She watched as his expression transformed, confusion, shock, and then something that made her stomach clench, disdain. "Pregnant?" he repeated, withdrawing his hand from hers. 2 months, Maya said, her voice barely audible. "I just found out last week for certain." Ethan's eyes, which had always looked at her with desire and what she thought was love, now examined her as if she were an intruder. He took a long sip of his Macallan, the crystal catching the light as he set it down with deliberate precision. "A black girl from the Bronx with twin babies?" Ethan laughed without humor, his eyes cold. "You really thought that would have a place in my future or in New York society?" Maya felt as if she'd been slapped. "Twins? What do you mean twins? Don't play naive, Maya. Twins run in my family. My father's a twin. I have twin cousins." He adjusted his Patek Philippe watch, a nervous gesture she'd never seen before. "I assume that's why you didn't drink tonight. You knew." "I didn't. I just found out I was pregnant," she stammered, tears beginning to blur her vision. "I had no idea it could be twins." Ethan's jaw tightened as he reached for his Italian leather wallet. He extracted several $100 bills and tossed them carelessly onto the table between them. "For your problem," he said coolly. "You're smart enough to understand this can't continue." Maya stared at the money, nausea rising that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. "I don't want your money, Ethan. I thought what we had was real." "Real?" He raised an eyebrow, adjusting his watch again. "What we had was convenient, and frankly, it's been boring for months. You'll never be enough for someone like me. Forget you ever knew me." The desserts arrived, 2 artfully plated confections that now seemed like a mockery. The waiter, sensing the tension, quickly retreated. "So that's it?" Maya whispered, a tear finally escaping down her cheek. "A year together, and I'm just disposable to you?" "We both knew this had an expiration date, Maya. Let's not make this more dramatic than it needs to be." He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. Don't contact me again." Maya sat frozen as Ethan walked away, not once looking back. Through the restaurant's large windows, she watched him slide into his gleaming Porsche, the engine purring to life before he pulled away into the Manhattan night. The subway ride back to the Bronx was a blur of fluorescent lights and anonymous faces. Maya clutched the pole, her other hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. The life she'd thought was finally coming together was crumbling around her. The following weeks unfolded with brutal efficiency. Morning sickness made her consistently late to work, and after 3 warnings, her boss called her into his office. "I'm sorry, Maya," he said, not meeting her eyes. "We need someone reliable. Your position is being terminated, effective immediately." That evening, she finally told her roommates about the pregnancy. "A baby?" Tanya echoed, exchanging looks with their third roommate, Jessica. "Look, Maya, we love you, but this place is barely big enough for the 3 of us as it is." "What Tanya's trying to say," Jessica added, "is that maybe you should find somewhere else, something more suitable for a child." Within 2 months, Maya was working 3 jobs: receptionist during the day, waitress at night, and freelance transcriptionist on weekends. She slept 4 hours a night in a tiny apartment in the South Bronx, so small that a crib would barely fit next to her fold-out sofa bed. When the ultrasound confirmed twins, Maya cried, not from joy, but from pure terror. How would she raise 2 children alone? In desperation, she wrote to Ethan one last time, enclosing a copy of the ultrasound. 3 days later, an envelope arrived from Pierce Holdings' legal department. "Ms. Johnson, any further attempts to contact Mr. Pierce will be considered harassment and met with legal action. This is your only warning." When her water broke 6 weeks early, Maya took a taxi to Harlem Hospital alone. The premature birth of Jordan and Jaden was complicated, resulting in a week in the NICU. During those endless nights, Maya watched her sons fighting for life under artificial lights and made a silent promise. One day, she whispered to the tiny forms, her fingers barely touching the incubators. "I'll prove to Ethan Pierce that we are more than enough. I'll build something so extraordinary that he'll drown in regret for having discarded us." In the modest apartment she managed to rent with social assistance, Maya put the twins to sleep in a shared crib while studying programming on a second-hand laptop. While her sons slept, she worked on code until dawn, determined to transform her knowledge into something revolutionary. Maya Johnson wouldn't be just another statistic. She would become a force that no one, especially Ethan Pierce, could ignore. While studying programming on her second-hand laptop, the twins finally asleep after hours of crying, Maya couldn't possibly imagine that in 14 years she would be commanding a technological empire valued in billions, while Ethan Pierce would be merely a scar she had almost forgotten. The sharp, antiseptic smell of the hospital corridor burned Maya's nostrils as she paced alone outside the delivery room, contractions coming faster now. Unlike the picture-perfect scenes from movies, the expectant father rushing in with an overnight bag, family members crowding the waiting area with balloons, Maya's only companion was a tattered paperback she'd been too distracted to read. "Ms. Johnson?" A nurse in blue scrubs appeared, clipboard in hand. "We're ready for you now." Maya nodded, following with one hand supporting her swollen belly. The contractions had started during her shift at the diner, forcing her to call her supervisor from the taxi. "You're having a baby right now?" her boss had demanded incredulously. "Well, don't expect your job to be waiting when you get back." The delivery room was blindingly bright, a team of medical professionals moving with practiced efficiency around the bed where she was positioned. No hand to hold, no encouraging whispers in her ear. "Where's your partner?" asked the obstetrician, glancing up briefly from between Maya's legs. "There isn't one," Maya gasped through clenched teeth as another contraction tore through her. The labor was long and complicated, 26 hours of agony that culminated in an emergency C-section when the twins showed signs of distress. When Maya finally regained full consciousness, a somber-faced doctor stood at her bedside. "Your sons are in the NICU," he explained. "They're significantly premature, and the smaller one, Jaden, is having respiratory difficulties." 13 hours later, Maya insisted on being wheeled to the neonatal intensive care unit despite her surgical pain. The sight of her babies, impossibly tiny, connected to a maze of tubes and wires, nearly broke her. Jordan weighed just over 4 pounds, Jaden barely 3. "You can touch them," encouraged a kind-eyed nurse, helping Maya position her hand through the porthole of the first incubator. Maya's fingers trembled as they grazed Jordan's translucent skin. His entire hand was smaller than her fingertip. "Hello, my love," she whispered. "You're so strong, just like your mama." She moved to Jaden's incubator next, her heart clenching at how fragile he looked, his little chest rising and falling with the help of a respirator. "You fight, Jaden," she urged, tears streaming down her face. "We have so much life waiting for us." For 7 consecutive nights, Maya kept vigil beside the incubators. The nurses eventually brought a reclining chair so she could sleep in snatches between feedings and tests. During those endless nights under the harsh fluorescent lights, she observed the other NICU parents, mostly couples supporting each other, some with grandparents bringing food and changes of clothes. "You're doing this all alone?" asked one father on the 3rd night, his own daughter finally stable enough for him to notice others around him. Maya nodded, her eyes never leaving Jaden's monitors. That's really something," he said awkwardly, before returning to his wife and baby. It was during those nights that Maya's promise crystallized from desperate hope into iron determination. She would not merely survive this, she would transform it into fuel for something extraordinary. When the twins were finally released after 3 weeks, Maya brought them home to her tiny apartment in the South Bronx. The space, barely 500 square feet, had been the cheapest she could find that wasn't actively infested or dangerous. One room served as bedroom, living room, and dining area, with a kitchenette along one wall and a bathroom so small she had to step over the toilet to reach the shower. The twins shared a second-hand crib positioned beside her pull-out sofa bed. 2 plastic storage bins held their meager belongings, donated onesies, a few soft toys from the hospital nurses, and the diapers she counted out each morning, anxious about having enough until her next paycheck. Maya's new routine was brutal. She woke at 5 every morning to feed the twins before dressing them for the subsidized daycare that agreed to take infants. By 7, she was on the subway heading to her job as a receptionist at a dental office, where she answered phones and filed paperwork until 3. 3 days a week, she went directly to her evening waitressing job, serving tables until midnight. On her off nights and weekends, she worked as a freelance transcriptionist, typing medical dictations while the twins slept. Sleep became a luxury she could rarely afford. 4 hours was her maximum on good nights, often broken by feedings or one of the twins crying. The exhaustion was bone deep, a constant companion that made her limbs heavy and her thoughts foggy. "You look terrible," her supervisor at the dental office remarked one morning. "If you can't keep it together, there are 20 other people who want your job." That night, Jordan developed a high fever. Panic rising in her throat, Maya bundled both babies into their second-hand stroller and rushed to the emergency room, waiting 4 hours before a doctor could see them. "It's an ear infection," the pediatrician finally announced. "Common in infants, but you did the right thing bringing him in." Maya nodded, relief flooding her system as she held Jaden in one arm and stroked Jordan's feverish head with her free hand. "Are you getting any help at home?" the doctor asked, noticing her exhaustion. "No," Maya replied simply. "It's just us." The doctor's expression softened with something like pity. "There are resources available. Social services, support groups for single mothers." "I'll look into it," Maya interrupted, though they both knew she had neither time nor energy for support groups. 2 weeks later, while scrolling through job listings during the twins' nap, Maya noticed an advertisement for a community technology center offering free computer access and basic programming classes. The center was located in a renovated warehouse in Harlem, a 40-minute subway ride from her apartment. The following Saturday, Maya bundled the twins into their stroller and made the journey. "We don't usually have babies here," said the receptionist, eyeing the sleeping twins dubiously. "They're good sleepers," Maya promised. "I just need 2 hours on a computer." The center was a revelation. Rows of decent desktops, free high-speed internet, and most importantly, volunteers offering programming tutorials. Maya settled the twins' stroller beside a workstation in the corner and immersed herself in the basics of Python. "You have an aptitude for this," remarked a volunteer named Carlos after watching her work through a beginner's exercise. "Have you considered studying programming formally?" Maya laughed softly, glancing at her sleeping sons. "Between 3 jobs and twins, formal education isn't exactly on the table." Carlos nodded thoughtfully. "You know, there are scholarships, boot camps designed for working adults. Some even offer childcare." For the first time in months, Maya felt a flicker of hope that wasn't solely focused on survival. She began visiting the center every Saturday, leaving the twins with a neighbor for 2 precious hours. She practiced coding exercises, devoured online tutorials, and slowly began developing her own small projects. After Jordan's second hospitalization for respiratory problems, Maya found herself studying the twins' medical records with new eyes. She began noticing patterns in their vital signs before episodes, correlations between certain measurements and subsequent complications. "What if," she whispered to herself one night, sketching algorithms in a cheap notebook while the twins slept in their crib, "there was a way to predict these episodes before they happen?" The idea took root, growing alongside her programming skills. During late nights, after her transcription work was complete, Maya began building a rudimentary program to analyze medical data patterns. One Monday morning, Maya boarded the bus with the twins for their pediatrician appointment. The route passed through Manhattan's financial district, towering glass skyscrapers reflecting the morning sun. As the bus idled at a traffic light, Maya's gaze fixed on the gleaming headquarters of Pierce Holdings, its name emblazoned in gold letters 40 stories high. Inside that building, Ethan was probably starting his day, expensive coffee, designer suit, meetings about millions of dollars, while she calculated whether she could afford both diapers and formula this week. "One day," she whispered to the twins, who were busy playing with the zipper of her worn coat, "we'll have our name on top of a building even taller than that one." Jordan looked up at her with curious eyes, Ethan's eyes, while Jaden continued his determined assault on her zipper. They were 6 months old now, growing despite the odds, developing personalities as distinct as their identical faces were similar. Without knowing it, on that crowded bus from the Bronx, Maya was only 5 years away from creating the algorithm that would revolutionize preventive medical diagnostics and begin her trajectory toward the top of New York's business world. 3 years had passed since that crowded bus ride from the Bronx, where Maya had made silent promises to her infant twins while passing the gleaming Pierce Holdings tower. Now, at 26, she sat at her desk in a small tech company in Brooklyn, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she implemented code fixes for their client management system. The developer job she'd secured 6 months ago after completing a subsidized coding bootcamp paid enough for her to rent a modest but clean one-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood. Maya glanced at the framed photo on her desk. Jordan and Jaden, now 3 years old, their matching grins revealing tiny teeth, their eyes, Ethan's eyes, sparkling with mischief. Tonight they would celebrate 1 month at her new position with a small chocolate cake she'd picked up from the bakery near their apartment. "Maya, can you take a look at this database query? It's running too slow," called Devon, a fellow junior developer. "Sure," she replied, saving her work and rolling her chair to his desk. Though she'd been there the shortest time of anyone on the team, her colleagues already recognized her talent for efficient coding solutions. At 5 o'clock sharp, Maya logged off and gathered her things. Unlike her co-workers who often stayed late perfecting projects or playing video games in the break room, she had a strict schedule to maintain. The twins were waiting at Little Explorer's daycare, which closed at 6, and lateness meant hefty fees she couldn't afford. "Heading out?" asked her supervisor Jason as she passed his office. "Yes, need to pick up the boys." He nodded, long accustomed to her clockwork departures. "That side project you mentioned yesterday, the medical algorithm? It sounds promising. If you want to present it at Friday's innovation meeting, I could put you on the schedule." Maya hesitated. Her predictive health algorithm remained a personal project, something she worked on late at night after the twins were asleep. It had grown from simple pattern recognition to a complex system that could potentially identify warning signs of respiratory distress hours before clinical symptoms appeared. "I'll think about it," she said, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Presenting meant exposure, potentially criticism. Her confidence in coding had grown, but standing before a room of experienced developers, many with elite computer science degrees, felt like another world entirely. At Little Explorers, Jaden barreled into her legs the moment she arrived, while Jordan looked up from a colorful counting book he'd been examining with remarkable focus. "Ms. Johnson?" the daycare teacher approached with a smile. "Jordan finished all the counting exercises we give the 5-year-olds today. I think we need to find more challenging material for him." Maya felt a familiar mixture of pride and anxiety. Her sons were showing signs of exceptional intelligence, Jordan with his mathematical intuition, Jaden with his ability to disassemble and reassemble anything mechanical. The daycare teachers frequently commented on their advanced abilities, but advanced children needed advanced opportunities, which required resources Maya was still struggling to provide. "Mama, I counted to 100 by 5s, Jordan announced, taking her hand as they left the center. "By 5s? That's amazing, sweetheart." "And I fixed Miss Sarah's chair when it was wobbly," added Jaden, not to be outdone. At home, Maya set out their simple dinner, chicken, rice, and vegetables, while the twins chatted animatedly about their day. After bath time and 2 bedtime stories, she tucked them into their shared bed in the apartment's only bedroom. She herself slept on a pull-out couch in the living room, an arrangement that would need to change as the boys grew older. "Time for sleep, my little geniuses," she whispered, kissing each forehead. "Will you work on your computer again tonight?" asked Jordan sleepily. "Just for a little while." "The one that helps sick people like when I couldn't breathe good?" Jaden clarified, referring to his recent asthma attack. "That's right. Maybe it will help other children someday." Once they were asleep, Maya opened her laptop on the kitchen table and immersed herself in code. Her algorithm had expanded considerably, incorporating machine learning techniques she'd taught herself through free online courses. The core remained focused on respiratory distress prediction, inspired by Jordan's recurrent bronchitis and Jaden's developing asthma, common complications in children born prematurely. 3 hours later, her phone buzzed with a text from Rita Santos, a nurse she'd met during Jaden's last hospital visit, who had taken an interest in Maya's project. "Just finished my shift. How's the algorithm coming along?" Maya smiled, grateful for Rita's continuing interest. The nurse had been the first medical professional to take her seriously when she'd mentioned her idea for predictive healthcare software. "Making progress," Maya texted back. "Added new variables for subtle oxygen saturation changes." "That's exactly what we need. Doctors often miss those early signs until it's crisis time." Maya rubbed her tired eyes, considering Jason's offer to present at the innovation meeting. What if her idea was actually valuable? What if it could help children like hers, whose conditions often escalated rapidly, frightening parents and overwhelming emergency rooms? The next morning, Maya dropped the twins at daycare and arrived at work earlier than usual, a newfound determination propelling her. She knocked on Jason's door. "I'd like to present on Friday," she said without preamble. He looked up, surprised but pleased. "Great. You'll have 15 minutes. Throughout the week, Maya prepared during lunch breaks and late nights, refining her presentation and ensuring her demo would run smoothly. By Friday morning, exhaustion shadowed her eyes, but excitement buzzed through her veins. The innovation meeting gathered all 20 developers from the company, plus the CEO and 2 product managers. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she connected her laptop to the projector. "Today, I'd like to share a personal project," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's a predictive algorithm designed to identify early warning signs of respiratory distress in pediatric patients." As she walked through the system's architecture, showcasing how it analyzed seemingly unrelated symptoms to predict potential crises, the room's energy shifted. The casual postures straightened, bored expressions turned attentive. "This originated from my own experience," Maya explained, showing a graph of anonymized data from Jordan's medical records. "My son's last 3 hospitalizations showed consistent pattern deviations 12 to 24 hours before clinical symptoms appeared. If detected earlier, intervention could have prevented emergency situations." When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before the CEO leaned forward. "Maya, this has potential far beyond a side project. Have you considered its commercial applications?" The following week transformed Maya's quiet existence. Her company's CEO arranged meetings with a medical software consultant to explore development possibilities. Rita connected her with 2 pediatricians interested in testing the concept. For the first time, Maya's late-night work felt less like a personal obsession and more like a viable professional path. Saturday morning, Maya took the twins to the park, watching them race around the playground with the boundless energy of 3-year-olds. She sat on a bench, flipping through a tech magazine she'd bought to research investors who specialized in healthcare startups, when a glossy advertisement caught her eye. There, smirking confidently from a full-page Patek Philippe watch advertisement, was Ethan Pierce. The familiar blue eyes, the same ones that greeted her each morning in her son's faces, stared back at her. "For the man who shapes the future," read the tagline beneath his manicured image. Maya's hands tightened on the magazine, an old pain flaring briefly before hardening into renewed determination. Ethan's final words to her echoed, "You'll never be enough for someone like me." She tore the page from the magazine with deliberate movements, folded it precisely, and tucked it into her pocket. Back at her apartment, she pinned it to the wall beside her workstation, not out of longing, but as fuel for the fire that drove her forward each day. That night, after the twins were asleep, Maya worked with unprecedented focus, rewriting sections of her algorithm with elegant efficiency. The face from the advertisement seemed to watch her, but its power diminished with each line of code she crafted. 5 years later, when her software was implemented in 5 of New York's largest hospitals and her first investment round reached $20 million, Maya would remember that watch advertisement as the fuel that fed her fiercest determination. The watch advertisement featuring Ethan's smug face remained pinned to Maya's wall for 3 more months before she finally took it down, not because the sight no longer motivated her, but because she no longer needed the reminder. Her algorithm had become her obsession, her redemption, her future. On a crisp autumn morning, Maya stood backstage at the Brooklyn Tech Innovation Competition, watching other contestants prepare elaborate displays and rehearse polished pitches. Most were teams of 3 to 5 people, predominantly white men in expensive casual wear that screamed Silicon Valley aspirations. Many had working prototypes with sleek interfaces, 3D printed models, and promotional materials that looked professionally designed. Maya glanced down at her simple presentation materials, a laptop with her algorithm demonstration and a small stack of printed handouts she'd designed herself. Her navy blue blazer, purchased from a consignment shop, was the nicest piece of clothing she owned, paired with a white blouse and black slacks that she hoped looked professional enough. "You okay?" Rita asked, appearing beside her. Despite having a shift later that day, Rita had insisted on coming to support her friend. "Just wondering if I'm completely out of my league," Maya admitted quietly. In the front row of the small auditorium, Jordan and Jaden sat fidgeting in their best clothes, matching button-up shirts and khaki pants Maya had found on clearance. At 5 years old, they were remarkably well-behaved, though their natural energy made sitting still a challenge. "Number 16, you're up in 5 minutes," announced a coordinator checking his clipboard. Maya nodded, her throat suddenly dry. The prize was life-changing, $500,000 in seed funding, plus mentorship from successful tech entrepreneurs. The odds of winning seemed astronomical, especially as a solo female developer with no formal credentials competing against MIT graduates and former Google engineers. When her number was called, Maya walked onto the stage with measured steps, willing her hands not to tremble as she connected her laptop to the projector. The audience of industry insiders, investors, and other competitors watched with polite but detached interest, another hopeful in a day filled with them. "Good morning," Maya began, her voice steadier than she expected. "My name is Maya Johnson, and I've developed an algorithm that predicts respiratory distress in pediatric patients 12 to 24 hours before clinical symptoms appear." She launched her demonstration, showing how the software analyzed subtle patterns in vital signs and other markers that human medical professionals often missed. "This system identified warning signs in my own son's medical data before his 3 hospitalizations," she continued, displaying anonymized charts from Jordan's records. In each case, intervention could have begun hours earlier, potentially preventing emergency situations and reducing both medical costs and patient trauma. As she spoke, Maya's natural passion broke through her nervousness. She explained how the algorithm could be integrated into existing hospital systems, how it learned from each new dataset to improve accuracy, and the potential applications beyond respiratory issues. "In essence," she concluded, "this isn't just software. It's a safety net for our most vulnerable patients and peace of mind for their families." When the questions began, Maya braced herself for skepticism. How can a solo developer without a PhD expect to revolutionize medical diagnostics? Asked one judge, peering at her over his glasses. Maya took a deep breath. As a mother who almost lost a child due to delayed detection, I don't have the luxury of waiting for someone with better credentials to solve this problem. My background in programming, combined with 3 years of research and collaboration with medical professionals, has produced results that speak for themselves. The algorithm's current accuracy rate is 87%, higher than many diagnostic protocols currently in use. Another judge leaned forward. Have you considered the regulatory hurdles? Medical software requires FDA approval. Yes, Maya nodded. That's factored into my implementation timeline. Page 3 of your handout outlines the regulatory pathway and potential partnerships with established medical technology companies to navigate those requirements. The questions continued for 10 minutes, each more technical than the last. Maya answered with growing confidence, her intimate knowledge of both the code and its medical applications evident in her detailed responses. When she returned to her seat, Rita squeezed her hand. "You were incredible." "Mama did good?" Jordan whispered loudly. "Really good," Rita assured him while Maya smiled, her heart still racing. The deliberation took nearly 2 hours. during which Maya took the twins for ice cream at a nearby shop to burn off their excess energy. When they returned, the finalists were being announced. Our 5 finalists are Quantum Solutions, BioTrack Systems, Neuralink, Horizon Tech, and, the announcer paused, Johnson Medical Algorithms. Maya froze, certain she'd misheard. Rita nudged her excitedly. That's you! You made the finals. The final round required each finalist to answer additional questions from the judging panel and potential investors in the audience. Maya fielded inquiries about scalability, market potential, and implementation strategies with composed clarity, her confidence growing with each response. When the winner was finally announced, the world seemed to slow around her. The winner of this year's Brooklyn Tech Innovation Competition, receiving $500,000 in seed funding, is Johnson Medical Algorithms. Congratulations, Maya Johnson! The twins erupted in cheers, jumping up and down in their seats while Rita applauded wildly. Maya stood motionless for several seconds, shock rendering her immobile until Jordan and Jaden broke free from Rita's supervision and ran to the stage, throwing their arms around her legs. "You won, Mama! You won!" they chanted in unison, their excitement finally breaking through her stupor. Maya knelt to embrace them, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "We won," she whispered. "We all won." The following morning, Maya stared at her bank account on her laptop screen, still unable to believe the number displayed. $500,000. The deposit had cleared overnight, transforming her modest savings account into something that could actually change their lives. With shaking hands, she typed her resignation email to the software company where she'd worked for the past year and a half. Her boss responded within minutes, requesting a meeting. "You're leaving to start your own company?" he asked when she sat across from him in his office, genuine surprise in his voice. "Yes," Maya replied simply. "The competition prize is giving me the opportunity to develop my medical algorithm full-time." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I had no idea you were working on something so significant. We could have potentially supported that project here." "I needed to do this independently," Maya explained, thinking of all the nights she'd worked after putting the twins to bed, all the weekends spent refining code while other people enjoyed their free time. 2 weeks later, Maya signed a lease for a small office in a modest building in Brooklyn. The space consisted of a main room large enough for 2 desks, a tiny kitchenette, and a storage closet she'd converted into a play area for the twins for the days when daycare schedules didn't align with her work hours. "It's perfect," Rita declared, helping Maya set up her computer equipment on a desk purchased from a second-hand office supply store. "It's a start," Maya corrected, looking around the sparse space that represented the physical manifestation of Johnson Tech Solutions. With her seed money, Maya could finally afford to hire Rita part-time as her first employee. The nurse's clinical expertise proved invaluable as they refined the algorithm and prepared presentations for potential hospital partners. Their first meeting with hospital executives came 3 months later. Maya and Rita sat across from 4 men in expensive suits, their skepticism barely concealed as Maya presented her software. "Your technology seems promising," said the chief medical officer, adjusting his glasses, "but without an established track record or institutional backing." "We're offering a 3-month trial at no cost," Maya countered. "If the system doesn't demonstrate value in that time frame, you walk away without obligation. If it does, and I'm confident it will, we can discuss implementation terms." After 2 more meetings and numerous emails, the hospital finally agreed to the trial. The night they received the signed agreement, Maya and Rita toasted with paper cups of sparkling cider in the small office. "To the first step of many," Rita said, raising her cup. "To proving everyone wrong," Maya added quietly. As Johnson Tech Solutions slowly gained traction, not everyone was supportive. One potential investor, after reviewing her business plan, offered unsolicited advice. "Maybe you should consider bringing on a co-founder with more experience," he suggested, not quite meeting her eyes. preferably someone with connections in the medical technology sector. Perhaps a male partner who could handle the business side while you focus on development. Maya thanked him for his time and showed him out, crossing his name permanently from her contact list. Later that evening, as the twins slept on the office sofa while she worked late adjusting algorithms, Maya came across a magazine left by a visitor. On page 7, a familiar face stared back at her. Ethan Pierce modeling a Patek Philippe watch, the same model he'd worn the night he'd abandoned her. "For the man who knows his worth," the caption read. Maya tore out the page, crumpling it before tossing it into the trash. She turned back to her computer with renewed intensity, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined expression. 5 years later, when her software was implemented in 5 of New York's largest hospitals and her first investment round reached $20 million, Maya would remember that watch advertisement as the fuel that fed her fiercest determination. 5 years after tearing that watch advertisement from the magazine, Maya's fierce determination had transformed her life beyond recognition. The Johnson Tech headquarters now occupied an entire floor of a sleek office building in downtown Manhattan, its glass-walled conference room offering sweeping views of the skyline that had once seemed so impossibly distant. Maya stood at the head of that conference room now, presenting quarterly results to her team of 25 employees. The algorithm that had begun as a mother's desperate attempt to protect her children had evolved into a sophisticated medical prediction system implemented in 5 major New York hospitals, with expansion plans for Chicago and Boston. The latest data shows a 93% accuracy rate in predicting respiratory complications, Maya explained, gesturing to the chart projected behind her. More importantly, early interventions based on our alerts have reduced pediatric ICU admissions by 27% in participating hospitals. The team, intentionally diverse in gender, race, and background, nodded appreciatively. Maya had built Johnson Tech differently from other startups, prioritizing talent over pedigree and creating a workplace where parents weren't penalized for family responsibilities. After the meeting, Maya retreated to her office, closing the door momentarily to savor a piece of news she'd received that morning. Their Series A funding round had closed at $20 million, valuing Johnson Tech at nearly $200 million. The journey from that tiny Brooklyn office to this moment had been grueling but exhilarating. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rita, now the company's full-time CFO. "Champagne tonight to celebrate the funding?" "Absolutely," Maya replied. "But first, school pickup and math homework." Despite her professional success, Maya's proudest achievements remained Jordan and Jaden. Now 8 years old, the twins had blossomed into remarkable boys whose intelligence continued to astonish their teachers and occasionally intimidate their peers. That afternoon, Maya left work early to attend their school's academic showcase. She slipped into the back of the auditorium just as Jordan approached the microphone, his posture confident as he explained the mathematical model he'd created to optimize the school's lunch line efficiency. "By applying Q theory and analyzing traffic flow patterns," he explained with a precision that belied his age, "we could reduce average wait time by 42%. The audience of parents and teachers exchanged impressed glances. When Jordan finished, Jaden took his place, unveiling a working model of a solar-powered water purification system he'd built from recycled materials. "My brother does the numbers," Jaden grinned, his charm balancing Jordan's seriousness. "I build things that work in the real world." Watching her sons, Maya felt a familiar mixture of pride and wistfulness. Their exceptional abilities were becoming impossible to ignore, as was their striking resemblance to Ethan. Those piercing blue eyes, the determined set of their jaws when focused. These were genetic gifts from a father they'd never known. After the showcase, several teachers approached Maya while the twins collected their projects. "Mrs. Johnson," began their science teacher, "have you considered the advanced placement program at Westridge Academy? Jordan and Jaden are operating years beyond grade level." Maya nodded thoughtfully. I've been researching options. They need more challenges than the standard curriculum provides. What she didn't mention was that Westridge Academy's tuition had been far beyond her means until the recent funding round. Now, finally, she could provide her sons with educational opportunities matching their potential. That evening in their new apartment, a comfortable 3-bedroom in Chelsea that had replaced their cramped quarters in Brooklyn, Maya helped Jordan with an advanced calculus problem while Jaden disassembled and modified a drone in the corner of the living room. "Mom, this is too easy," Jordan complained, solving an equation meant for high school students. "Can I try the next chapter?" After dinner, Maya promised, marveling at how her son processed mathematical concepts that she herself had to study to understand. Later, after the boys were asleep, Rita arrived with a bottle of champagne, and they settled on Maya's balcony overlooking the city lights. $20 million, Rita said, shaking her head in wonder as she poured 2 glasses. "Remember when we were excited about that first 500,000? Maya laughed softly. "I thought that was all the money in the world. And now look at you, CEO of a company valued at $200 million living in Chelsea considering Westridge Academy for the boys." Rita raised her glass. "You did it, Maya. Everything you promised yourself that night in the hospital." Maya's smile faltered slightly. "Not everything. The boys still ask questions I don't know how to answer. About Ethan? About why they don't have a father when other kids do." Maya sighed, staring into her champagne. "Last week, Jordan asked if his father died. It seemed easier to let him think that than explain the truth." "What did you tell him? That his father wasn't ready to be a parent, that some families are different, that they have everything they need." Maya's voice remained steady, but her eyes reflected old pain. "I've never lied about Ethan, but I've never told them how completely he rejected us either." The following week, a reporter from Business Innovators magazine arrived at Johnson Tech for an interview featuring Maya among their Emerging Entrepreneurs profile series. The photographer arranged her against the Manhattan skyline, her tailored blazer and confident posture a stark contrast to the exhausted young mother she'd once been. "Your journey from single mother to tech CEO is remarkable," the reporter began, tapping her recorder. "What inspired you to develop medical prediction software?" Maya shared the sanitized version of her story: premature twins with health complications, the recognition of patterns in their medical data, her determination to prevent other families from experiencing similar emergencies. "And how do you balance being CEO and a single mother?" the reporter asked, the question Maya had come to expect in every interview. "I don't view them as competing priorities," Maya answered carefully. "My children are the reason I built this company. Every decision I make professionally is ultimately about creating a better future for them." The reporter nodded, making notes before asking the question Maya had been bracing for. "And what about your children's father? Is he part of their lives?" Maya maintained her composed expression. "My sons have everything they need. Some people aren't ready for family responsibilities, and that's their choice to make." "Would you say your experience as a single mother has influenced your management style?" "Absolutely. It taught me efficiency, crisis management, and the importance of building supportive systems. We offer parental leave and flexible schedules at Johnson Tech because I understand those challenges firsthand." After the interview, Maya returned to her office to find an email from Westridge Academy confirming the twins' acceptance with scholarships for academic excellence. She allowed herself a moment of pure satisfaction. Her sons would have opportunities she'd never dreamed of for herself. That evening, helping the boys with homework in their comfortable living room, Jordan looked up suddenly. "Mom, Tyler at school said every kid has to have a dad somewhere. Is our dad somewhere?" The question caught Maya off guard. She set down her tablet, giving the conversation her full attention. "Yes, he is somewhere." "Why doesn't he live with us?" Jaden asked, abandoning his science project to join the conversation. Maya chose her words carefully. "Some families are different. Your father wasn't ready to be a parent when you were born. Doesn't he want to know us? Jordan's mathematical precision extended to his questions, direct, seeking clear answers. That was his choice, Maya said gently, but it doesn't reflect on you. You are both extraordinary, and any parent would be fortunate to know you. Later that night, Maya stood at her bedroom window watching the city lights. She thought about how much had changed, the comfortable home they now enjoyed, the prestigious school the boys would attend, the company she'd built from nothing. Yet some questions remained as painful as they had been 8 years ago. She picked up the magazine that had arrived that day, opening to the profile of herself. The photographer had captured a moment with the twins on either side of her, their matching smiles radiant, the headline reading, "The New Face of Medical Innovation." The article praised her technical innovations and business acumen, but made only passing reference to her role as a mother. What Maya didn't know was that this magazine would fall into Ethan Pierce's hands during a first-class flight to Tokyo, making him choke on his champagne as he recognized not only the woman he had abandoned, but the unmistakable features of his own face in the twin boys smiling beside her. The magazine that exposed Maya's success story to Ethan during his Tokyo flight created ripples that would eventually become waves. 4 years after that pivotal moment, Maya Johnson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 42nd floor of a gleaming Manhattan skyscraper, watching the city she had once viewed from crowded subway cars and run-down apartment windows. The Johnson Tech logo, a stylized double helix representing both her twin sons and the pattern recognition technology that had made her a billionaire, glowed from the building across the street, visible to everyone in Midtown. The intercom on her desk buzzed. "Ms. Johnson, the team from Goldman Sachs is here for the Series C closing," her assistant announced. "Send them in," Maya replied, smoothing down her Chanel suit, a far cry from the consignment shop blazer she'd worn to her first investor meetings. The Series C funding round of $200 million would value Johnson Tech at over $1 billion, officially making Maya a billionaire at 35. Her medical prediction software had expanded beyond respiratory issues to become a comprehensive early warning system implemented in 73 hospitals nationwide. The algorithm that began as a desperate mother's attempt to protect her children now saved thousands of lives annually. After the Goldman Sachs executives left, their congratulations still echoing in the conference room, Rita entered with 2 flutes of champagne. "To making history," Rita toasted. Black female founders have received less than 0.006% of venture capital historically. You just secured $200 million. Maya clinked glasses with her friend and CFO, to proving that capability matters more than category. Later that morning, Maya participated in the ceremonial bell ringing at the New York Stock Exchange, celebrating Johnson Tech's new partnership with a major healthcare system. Standing on the balcony overlooking the trading floor, dressed in a tailored Chanel suit that emphasized her confident posture, she bore no resemblance to the frightened young woman who had once counted pennies for diapers. "Johnson Tech is revolutionizing predictive healthcare," the NYSE president announced to applause. "Under Maya Johnson's leadership, their artificial intelligence systems have reduced emergency interventions by 35% in participating hospitals." After the ceremony, Maya slipped away from financial reporters to keep her most important commitment of the day, attending the twins' science competition at Westridge Academy. At 12 years old, Jordan and Jaden had grown into impressive young men whose intellectual gifts continued to astonish everyone who met them. Maya arrived just as Jordan approached the university professor serving as a judge, explaining the complex mathematical theory behind his probability analysis. His confidence and precision of language made him seem far older than 12, though his height still betrayed his youth. "The algorithm predicts outcomes with 97% accuracy when applied to controlled environments," Jordan explained, his articulation reminiscent of someone else, someone whose features became more apparent in the twins with each passing year. Across the exhibition hall, Jaden demonstrated his robotic prosthetic hand to an entranced audience of parents and judges. While Jordan excelled in theoretical mathematics, Jaden's genius manifested in engineering and design. "I designed the neural interface to respond to electrical impulses from residual muscles," Jaden explained, his charisma balancing his brother's more serious demeanor. "The response time is twice as fast as current market models." The twins swept their categories, adding 2 more trophies to their already impressive collection. As they left the school, Maya's driver waited with their Tesla SUV, another marker of how far they had come from subway commutes and second-hand strollers. "Mom, Professor Keller from Princeton wants me to participate in their summer mathematics program," Jordan announced, buckling his seatbelt. "And MIT's engineering department emailed about my prosthetic design," Jaden added, not to be outdone. Maya smiled, making mental notes to review both opportunities. "We'll discuss all options this weekend. I'm proud of both of you, not just for winning, but for using your gifts to help others." That evening, they moved into their new home, a stunning duplex penthouse in Tribeca that Maya had purchased after the last funding round. The 3,000-square-foot space featured floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views, custom built-ins for the boys' projects, and a home automation system Jaden had already begun to modify. "This view is significantly superior to our previous apartment," Jordan observed clinically, though his eyes widened at the nighttime skyline spread before them. "Can I convert the guest room into a robotics lab?" Jaden asked, already planning his next invention. Later, after the twins had retreated to their rooms, Jordan to solve differential equations for fun and Jaden to tinker with his latest prototype, Maya sat alone on her terrace, sipping a glass of wine and reflecting on their journey. The lights of Manhattan sparkled below, a city that had once seemed so hostile now laying at her feet. Her phone chimed with an email notification. The subject line made her pause. "Westridge Academy Father-Son STEM Weekend." She opened it reluctantly, reading about the upcoming event where fathers and sons would collaborate on science projects. Another reminder of the one thing her success couldn't provide. What Maya didn't know was that across town, in the penthouse office of Pierce Holdings, Ethan Pierce was studying a confidential report with unusual intensity. The folder marked Johnson Tech Solutions, Competitive Analysis, contained something far more personal than business intelligence. "I need more information," Ethan instructed the private investigator seated across from him. "School records, social activities, medical history, anything you can find about the boys." The investigator shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Pierce, we've been monitoring Johnson Tech for potential acquisition for 6 months, but this request seems personal." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Just do your job and increase surveillance on Maya Johnson's movements." "Sir, she's extremely private. No social media presence, limited public appearances, heavy security at their residence." "I don't care what it takes," Ethan interrupted sharply. "I want to know everything about those boys." Since spotting that magazine article 4 years ago, Ethan had become increasingly obsessed with Maya's success and the 2 boys who so clearly carried his genetics. The timing aligned perfectly with her pregnancy announcement at 11 Madison Park. The blue eyes, the distinctive jawline, the reported mathematical brilliance that ran in the Pierce family all pointed to the unavoidable truth he had spent years avoiding. After his father's death the previous year, Ethan had assumed control of Pierce Holdings, only to discover the company's market position was less dominant than portrayed. Several key contracts had been lost to more innovative competitors, including, humiliatingly, Johnson Tech, whose medical prediction software had replaced Pierce Medical Systems in 3 major hospital groups. Ethan dismissed the investigator and walked to his window, staring at the city below. His 3rd marriage was faltering, his company losing ground, while Maya Johnson, the woman he had so casually discarded, had built an empire that now threatened his own. His assistant entered after a brief knock. "Mr. Pierce, the invitation list for the Metropolitan Gala needs your approval. As a major sponsor, you have final say on 10 VIP invitations." Ethan scanned the list disinterestedly until a name caught his eye. Maya Johnson, nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year. "Approve all of these," he said, his pulse quickening slightly. The gala was the social event of the season, gathering New York's elite for a night of philanthropy and networking. The perfect opportunity to finally see Maya, and possibly his sons, in person. 2 weeks later, Maya's assistant placed an embossed invitation on her desk. "The Metropolitan Gala Committee confirmed you'll receive the Entrepreneur of the Year award. They request you attend with family to accept in person." Maya examined the heavy cream-colored card. The gala represented exactly the type of social event she typically avoided, filled with precisely the people who had once made her feel inadequate. Yet the award carried significant prestige that would benefit Johnson Tech. "I'll discuss it with the boys," she decided. That evening, at their dining table overlooking the Hudson River, Maya presented the invitation. "It's a formal event where I'd receive an award. You'd both need to wear tuxedos." "Will there be interesting people to talk to?" Jordan asked practically. "Will there be good food?" Jaden's priorities differed slightly. "Yes to both," Maya laughed. "It's considered quite an honor." "Then we should attend," Jordan concluded. "Statistical analysis of your public appearances indicates they correlate positively with company valuation." Maya smiled at her pragmatic son. "Sometimes I forget you're only 12. Later that night, Maya stood on her terrace, observing the city lights. Somewhere out there was Ethan Pierce, living his privileged life, unaware that the sons he had rejected had become young geniuses, or that the woman he had deemed insufficient now commanded an empire worth more than $1 billion. What Maya didn't know was that as the date of the Metropolitan Gala approached, two trajectories that had separated on a cold night 14 years ago were about to collide again. But this time, the balance of power had shifted dramatically in favor of the woman who was once deemed not enough. As the Metropolitan Gala drew closer, Maya found herself unexpectedly preoccupied with selecting the perfect attire. Standing in the exclusive Vera Wang boutique on Madison Avenue, she examined her reflection in the three-way mirror while a team of assistants fussed around her. "This design was created specifically with you in mind, Ms. Johnson," the boutique manager explained, adjusting the drape of midnight blue fabric that cascaded elegantly from Maya's shoulders. "Ms. Wang was inspired by your journey when designing this piece." The dress was simultaneously bold and elegant, structured shoulders projecting confidence while the flowing skirt suggested grace. It was worlds away from the sale rack dress she'd worn to 11 Madison Park 14 years ago. "You're such an inspiration for women of all backgrounds," the assistant continued, pinning a section of the hem. "Breaking through in tech as a woman of color, raising brilliant children on your own, it's extraordinary." Maya's eyes met her own reflection. At 37, her face showed the refined confidence that only comes from overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. No trace remained of the terrified young woman who had once cried on the subway home from the worst dinner of her life. Across town, in the Johnson Tech conference room, Maya's executive team gathered to finalize details for their groundbreaking announcement. The day after the gala, they would unveil a revolutionary AI diagnostic system that could predict multiple medical conditions simultaneously, representing a quantum leap beyond their current technology. "The healthcare industry won't know what hit them," Rita said, reviewing the presentation slides. "This could triple our market share within 18 months. Maya nodded, her mind briefly drifting to the gala. "Let's make sure the security protocols are airtight. I don't want any leaks before the official announcement." Later that afternoon, Maya's driver delivered her to Westridge Academy, where she helped Jordan select his tuxedo for the event. Unlike other boys his age who might fidget during such fittings, Jordan stood perfectly still, analyzing his reflection with scientific detachment. "The proportions of this jacket are optimal for my frame," he observed as the tailor marked adjustments. Maya smiled, struck again by how her son's analytical mind applied itself to everything, even fashion. At 12, Jordan already carried himself with the poise of someone much older, his features a constant reminder of his genetic heritage. "Mom," he said suddenly as they left the tailor, "is there a possibility our father might be at this event?" The question caught Maya off guard. "Why do you ask that?" Jordan shrugged with calculated casualness. "Statistical probability. If he's in New York's business elite, as you've indicated, and this gala includes most prominent business leaders, there's a non-zero chance of his attendance." Maya chose her words carefully. "Yes, there's a possibility. Would that bother you?" "It would be an interesting data point," Jordan replied, his emotional detachment both impressive and concerning. "After 12 years, I'm merely curious about the biological contributor to 50% of my DNA." That evening, Jaden posed a similar question, though with his characteristic directness as he disassembled a drone on the living room floor. "Mom, will our dad be there tomorrow?" he asked without looking up from his work. "I don't know," Maya answered honestly. "He might be. Would you want to meet him if he was?" Jaden connected 2 wires with practiced precision. "Maybe. I'd like to ask him why he thought you weren't enough when you're clearly exceptional by any objective measure." Maya's heart clenched at her son's protective loyalty. "If we do see him, remember that his choices reflect on him, not on us. You both have always been more than enough." Unbeknownst to Maya, at that very moment, Ethan Pierce sat in his penthouse study, a glass of 18-year-old scotch in hand, reviewing the latest report from his private investigator. The thick folder contained detailed information about Jordan and Jaden Johnson, their academic achievements, extracurricular activities, even medical records obtained through questionable means. "They're definitely mine," Ethan muttered, staring at school photographs that revealed faces with unmistakable Pierce features. The twins' extraordinary aptitudes matched the genetic predisposition for mathematics and engineering that had defined Pierce men for generations. His third wife, Veronica Astor Pierce, entered without knocking, her expression tightening at the sight of the folder. "You're obsessed with this woman you barely know anymore," she accused, her voice sharp with disdain. "This isn't about her," Ethan replied, though they both knew it was a lie. "You've been fixated on Maya Johnson since that magazine article 4 years ago," Veronica continued, pouring herself a generous glass of wine. "Our marriage is barely functioning, your company is losing market share to hers, and instead of addressing either issue, you're stalking her and children who may or may not be yours." Ethan's jaw tightened. "The timing aligns perfectly. Look at them, Veronica. Those are Pierce eyes, Pierce features." "And what exactly do you plan to do with this information?" she challenged. "Disrupt lives that seem perfectly content without you? Create a public scandal? Pierce Holdings stock can't afford another controversy." When Veronica left, slamming the door behind her, Ethan returned to the photographs. The boys were undeniably remarkable, Jordan already participating in university-level mathematics research, Jaden developing patentable technologies before his 13th birthday. Sons any father would be proud to claim. Sons he had rejected before they even took their first breath. The night before the gala, Maya sat with Jordan and Jaden on their penthouse terrace, the city lights creating a glittering backdrop for a conversation she'd been postponing. "I want to talk about your father before tomorrow," she began, looking at her sons' expectant faces. "There's a chance we might see him, and you deserve to know more about our history." "Is he someone we would recognize?" Jordan asked, always seeking precise information. "Possibly," Maya admitted. "He's from a prominent New York family." "Why did he leave?" Jaden's question cut straight to the heart of the matter. Maya took a deep breath. "When I told him I was pregnant, he made it clear that we, didn't fit into his plans or his social circle. He wasn't ready for the responsibility of being a father." "He rejected us," Jordan stated, processing the information with his characteristic detachment. "Yes," Maya confirmed gently, "but that doesn't diminish who you are. His choices reflect his limitations, not your worth." Are you telling us this because you think we'll meet him tomorrow? Jaden pressed. I don't know if you will, Maya answered truthfully, but I wanted you to be prepared for the possibility. You have every right to decide how much or how little you want to know him. After the boys went to bed, Rita arrived with the final seating chart for the gala, bringing a bottle of wine to share on the terrace. The Pierces are seated 3 tables away from us, Rita mentioned casually, though her eyes watched Maya carefully. Maya's expression remained composed. I assumed he might be there. Pierce Holdings always sponsors these events. Are you ready for this? Rita asked, handing Maya a glass of Cabernet. Seeing him again after all these years with the boys there? It's strange, Maya admitted, swirling the wine thoughtfully. Part of me has always been preparing for this moment. The other part thought it would never actually come. As Maya prepared for bed, she reviewed her acceptance speech one final time. She had crafted it carefully, gracious, inspiring, but with a subtle reference to those who doubted that only one person in the audience would fully comprehend. Across Manhattan, Ethan lay awake beside his sleeping wife, the final confirmation from his investigator received just hours earlier. DNA analysis of discarded items from the twins' school confirmed with 99.9% certainty Jordan and Jaden Johnson were his biological sons. Tomorrow, he would come face to face with the children he had abandoned and the woman whose potential he had fatally underestimated. In their respective bedrooms, Maya and Ethan both stared at their attire for the following evening. She at an exquisite Vera Wang creation, he at a Tom Ford tuxedo, one with determination, the other with anguish. The Metropolitan Gala would gather New York's elite to celebrate the year's greatest successes, but none of the guests could imagine that the true spectacle would be the silent confrontation between the woman who had built an empire from nothing and the man who had made the most expensive mistake of his life by underestimating her. The Metropolitan Gala transformed the Plaza Hotel into a luminescent wonderland, crystal chandeliers reflecting off sequined gowns and polished cufflinks as New York's elite mingled in carefully curated social circles. Outside, a line of limousines and luxury vehicles delivered the city's most influential figures to the red carpet, where photographers jostled for the perfect shot. Maya's limousine glided to a stop at the entrance, causing a ripple of curiosity among the waiting press. Though Johnson Tech had become a billion-dollar company, its founder rarely appeared at social events, making her arrival noteworthy even before the twins emerged behind her. "Ready?" Maya asked, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her Vera Wang gown. Jordan adjusted his bow tie with mathematical precision. Statistically speaking, social anxiety typically decreases after initial interaction begins. "He means yes," Jaden translated with a grin. When Maya stepped onto the red carpet, the camera flashes intensified. The midnight blue dress caught the light dramatically, its structured shoulders and flowing skirt creating a silhouette of undeniable power. Gone was any trace of the frightened young woman from the Bronx. In her place stood a business titan whose very presence commanded respect. Jordan and Jaden flanked her in perfectly tailored tuxedos, their poised demeanor belying their 12 years. Several tech journalists called Maya's name, while fashion photographers focused on her ensemble. The trio moved with practiced grace, pausing briefly for photos before proceeding into the opulent hotel lobby. Inside, the ballroom sparkled with old money and new technology. Generations of Manhattan society mingled with recently minted tech billionaires, creating an atmosphere where tradition and innovation circled each other warily. "Ms. Johnson!" A silver-haired man approached, hand extended. "Harold Whitman, Stanford Medical. Your predictive software has revolutionized our emergency protocols." As Maya engaged in conversation, the twins were quickly surrounded by curious academics who had read about their achievements. Jordan expertly fielded questions about his mathematical theories while Jaden described his latest robotics project with animated gestures. Across the room, Ethan Pierce arrived with Veronica on his arm, her diamond necklace glittering as aggressively as her smile. They paused for photos, presenting the image of Manhattan aristocracy. Old money, old power, old certainties. "Remember, no scenes," Veronica hissed through her smile as they entered the ballroom. "Your little obsession isn't worth tanking our stock price further." Ethan barely heard her, his eyes already scanning the crowd. When he finally spotted Maya across the room, surrounded by admirers, his champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. The confident woman in the designer gown bore little resemblance to the girl he'd discarded, yet was unmistakably her. Then his gaze shifted to the two young boys beside her, and his hand trembled visibly. Despite having studied photographs in his investigator's reports, seeing his sons in person, their eyes precisely matching his own, sent a physical shock through his system. "That's them?" Veronica asked, following his stare. When he nodded, she added coldly, "They certainly have your eyes. Congratulations on creating two more Pierces you've never bothered to know." Throughout the cocktail hour, Ethan maneuvered through conversations without absorbing a word, his attention fixed on Maya and the twins. Several times he nearly approached them, only to lose nerve as prominent figures continuously surrounded his former girlfriend, treating her with the deference once reserved exclusively for families like his. When the dinner chimes sounded, guests moved to their assigned tables. Ethan watched as Maya was seated at a place of honor near the stage, the twins on either side of her, while he and Veronica were positioned 3 tables away, close enough to observe but not to interact. After the main course, the gala chairman approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our awards presentation. Our first honor, the Entrepreneur of the Year Award, celebrates innovation that transforms industries and improves lives." Ethan's collar suddenly felt too tight as he watched Maya's table, where the twins sat straighter in anticipation. This year's recipient built a billion-dollar company from nothing, revolutionizing medical predictive technology and saving countless lives. Please welcome to the stage Maya Johnson. The ballroom erupted in applause as Maya rose gracefully, the spotlight catching the subtle shimmer in her gown's fabric. On stage, under the brilliant lights, she seemed to glow with an inner certainty that captivated the audience. "Thank you for this tremendous honor," Maya began, her voice steady and clear. "When I started Johnson Tech Solutions in my tiny apartment in the Bronx while my twin sons slept in a shared crib, many said it was impossible. That a single mother, black, without connections or family wealth, couldn't enter this world." Her gaze swept across the audience briefly, deliberately, meeting Ethan's. "I dedicate this award to my extraordinary sons Jordan and Jaden, who inherited not only the penetrating eyes of their absent father, but also his aptitude for business." She paused for effect, "and my unyielding determination." A murmur rippled through the ballroom as several heads turned toward Ethan, whose complexion had paled noticeably. Veronica's knuckles whitened around her champagne flute as she registered the implications of Maya's words. At the honored table, the twins exchanged a glance, their identical blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, reflecting the spotlight. Maya continued her speech with gracious acknowledgments of her team and investors, but the damage was done. The carefully crafted narrative of Ethan Pierce's perfect life had just acquired a significant crack, visible to the entire New York elite. After the ceremony, as guests circulated through the grand ballroom for dessert and networking, Maya found herself surrounded by admirers, CEOs from Fortune 500 companies, potential investors, and established philanthropists eager to associate with her success. She maintained her composure, though she could feel Ethan's gaze following her movements. Eventually, the inevitable occurred. She felt a hand on her elbow and turned to find Ethan standing uncomfortably close, his expensive cologne bringing an unwelcome flood of memories. "Maya," his voice was tense, almost desperate. "We need to talk." With a polite smile to her conversation partners, she stepped a few paces away with him, careful to remain within view of everyone. 14 years is a long time to decide you want to talk, Ethan," she said evenly. His jaw tightened as he glanced toward the twins, who were engaged in conversation with a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. "Why did you never tell me they were mine?" Maya laughed softly, the sound devoid of humor. "I tried. You sent me a letter from your legal department threatening a harassment suit. Remember?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, visibly destabilized. "I was young and stupid. I made a terrible mistake." "A mistake?" Maya raised a perfectly groomed eyebrow. "What's Pierce Holdings worth now, Ethan? 200 million? 300? She took a deliberate sip of champagne. "My company closed last quarter valued at 3 billion. I think your mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me." At that moment, Jordan and Jaden approached, curious about the man engaging their mother in such intense conversation. "Mom, the MIT representative wants to discuss the scholarship," Jordan said, his analytical gaze assessing Ethan with unsettling thoroughness. Ethan stared fixedly at the teenagers, recognition and regret etched across his features. The same blue eyes as his, the same chin, the same tilt of the head when interested. "Boys, this is Ethan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Holdings," Maya introduced casually. "Mr. Pierce, these are my sons, Jordan and Jaden. Jordan was just accepted to MIT's advanced program at 14, and Jaden develops robotics technology that Google tried to buy last month. It's a pleasure to meet you," Ethan managed, his voice thick with emotion. The twins, polite but disinterested, acknowledged him briefly before turning back to their mother. "The MIT representative is waiting by the east entrance," Jordan informed her. "His schedule only permits another 17 minutes of conversation." As the twins walked away, Ethan's face crumpled. "They don't know who I am." "They know they're the sons of a man who wasn't ready to be a father," Maya replied. "I never spoke ill of you if that's what concerns you. There simply was never any reason to talk about you." Ethan's expression contorted with a mixture of emotions. "I want to know them. I can make up for lost time. I'm their father. I have rights." "Rights?" Maya interrupted, her voice low but sharp as steel. "That DNA test you demanded when you learned about the pregnancy? It's in the envelope I left with your driver outside. 15 years late, but I thought you might still want it." The ballroom now seemed to revolve around them, guests noticing the tension between the guest of honor and the prominent CEO. "You built all this alone?" Ethan asked, looking around as if only now comprehending the magnitude of Maya's empire. "No, Ethan," she answered with a serene smile. "I built it with my sons. The same ones you discarded along with a few dollars on that table at 11 Madison Park." A few meters away, Veronica Astor Pierce approached with a confused expression, while photographers circulated, capturing the moment for tomorrow's social columns. "You did us a favor that night," Maya concluded, elegantly adjusting her diamond bracelet. "You freed us from the mediocrity of your limited expectations." While photographers of the event discreetly captured the tense encounter, no one could predict that the images of Ethan Pierce confronted by his past would become New York's most explosive headline the next morning, shaking the foundations of the Pierce empire in a way that not even the most skilled public relations department could contain. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Maya's Tribeca penthouse as she scrolled through her phone, inundated with notifications, text messages, and emails. The New York Post headline glared at her. Herdeiro Pierce confronted by billionaire CEO and unknown sons. Similar headlines dominated every news outlet and social media platform, accompanied by photos capturing the tense exchange between her and Ethan, with the twins visible in the background. "Well, that escalated quickly," Rita remarked, setting down a cup of coffee on the kitchen island. She had arrived early, anticipating the media storm. Maya set her phone aside, rubbing her temples. "I knew there would be gossip, but this is beyond what I expected." In the dining area, Jordan and Jaden sat eating breakfast, seemingly undisturbed by the chaos unfolding in the digital world. Jordan methodically cut his waffles into perfectly equal pieces while reading a quantum physics paper on his tablet. "So," Jaden said casually, pouring more syrup on his stack. "That guy yesterday was our biological father?" Maya froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips. The directness of the question shouldn't have surprised her. The twins had always approached life with analytical precision, but she hadn't prepared for this particular conversation over breakfast. "Yes," she answered, deciding honesty was the only acceptable path. "How did you know?" "We're not idiots, Mom," Jordan replied without looking up from his tablet. "We have the same eyes he does, and the way he looked at us, like he'd seen ghosts." Maya moved to the table, sitting between her sons. "I'm sorry you found out this way. I was planning to tell you everything when I felt you were ready." "We're fine," Jaden shrugged, his fork stabbing another piece of waffle. "You've always been more than enough." The simple statement, delivered with such casual certainty, nearly brought tears to Maya's eyes. Before she could respond, her phone rang, the third call from her PR team in the last hour. While Maya managed the unfolding publicity crisis, across town Ethan Pierce faced his own reckoning. He sat in his expansive corner office, blinds drawn against the morning light, staring at the newspapers spread across his desk. Each featured variations of the same story, with photos capturing his shocked expression as he confronted Maya and saw the twins. His assistant had already fielded 27 calls from journalists seeking comment. The Pierce Holdings PR department was in crisis mode. Executives were demanding emergency meetings, and shareholders were panicking as the company's stock had dropped 15 points in pre-market trading. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Pierce, your wife is on line 1. Ethan took a deep breath before answering. "Veronica, I've instructed my attorney to prepare divorce papers." She cut him off, her voice glacial. 14 years of lying, Ethan. Hidden children. Do you have any idea what this will do to my reputation? "Veronica, please, we can discuss this. Your secretary will coordinate with my lawyer regarding the removal of my belongings. Don't be at the apartment when I arrive." The line went dead. Before Ethan could process this development, his assistant appeared at the door. "Sir, the board has called an emergency meeting for 2 o'clock to discuss recent developments." By noon, Maya had shifted into crisis management mode. After consulting with her executive team and PR advisors, she issued a brief statement. "My personal history is separate from Johnson Tech's mission to improve healthcare outcomes worldwide. I ask for privacy for my family during this time." She then turned her attention to the twins, who had remained remarkably composed throughout the morning. "I think we should talk more about your father," Maya said gently, sitting with them in the living room, "now that you know who he is." "What's there to talk about?" Jordan asked, his logical mind seeking parameters. "He rejected us before birth, correct?" Maya nodded, choosing her words carefully. "When I told him I was pregnant, he made it clear he didn't want to be involved. He offered money to terminate the pregnancy." Jaden's eyes widened slightly. "He tried to pay you to get rid of us?" "Yes," Maya confirmed, seeing no benefit in softening the truth. "But that reflects on him, not on you. Never on you." "Did you ever try to contact him after we were born?" Jordan's question was precise, seeking complete data. "Once," Maya admitted, "when you were 3 months old and in the hospital with respiratory issues. I was desperate and thought he should know. His legal department sent a cease and desist letter threatening legal action if I contacted him again." The twins exchanged a glance, having one of their silent communications that Maya had never fully deciphered. "We don't need him," Jaden finally declared. "We have you." The doorbell interrupted their conversation. Maya's security team announced that Ethan Pierce was in the lobby, insisting on coming up. After a moment's hesitation, Maya agreed. "He was bound to try eventually," she told the twins. "You can stay or leave, whatever makes you comfortable." "We'll stay," they answered simultaneously. When Ethan entered the penthouse, he looked markedly different from the polished figure at the gala. His normally perfect hair was disheveled, his complexion pallid, his designer suit slightly rumpled. His eyes darted first to the twins, who watched him with clinical interest from the sofa, then to Maya, who maintained a composed stance by the windows. "Veronica filed for divorce this morning," he announced without preamble. "The board is meeting to discuss my position." "I'm sorry about your situation," Maya responded coolly, "but I don't understand what that has to do with us." Ethan's gaze returned to the twins. "I want to be part of your lives," he said, addressing them directly for the first time. "I know I'm 14 years late, but I'm your father. I can offer opportunities, connections, my name." "We don't need your name," Jordan interrupted calmly. "Our mother gave us an excellent one." Jaden nodded in agreement. "And regarding opportunities, we're doing fine without your help." The polite rejection from the teenagers seemed to hit Ethan like a physical blow. He turned back to Maya, desperation evident in his expression. "I can change, Maya. I can be part of this family. I have resources. I can compensate financially for all these years." $3 billion, Ethan," Maya interrupted softly. "That's Johnson Tech's current valuation. How many generations of the Pierce fortune would it take to compensate for that?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan's shoulders slumped as he finally comprehended the magnitude of what he had lost. Not just a family, but an empire built by the woman he had deemed inadequate. "I'm not here to prevent you from knowing your sons," Maya continued, her voice measured. "They're young adults now, capable of making their own decisions. But don't expect me to ease your path or heal your guilt." Over the following weeks, the repercussions of the Gala revelation reverberated through New York's business and social circles. Pierce Holdings stock continued to decline as shareholders questioned Ethan's judgment and character. Veronica's divorce proceedings turned vicious, with her lawyers demanding half his fortune. The press seemed insatiable, painting Ethan as the billionaire who rejected his own family, while elevating Maya as a symbol of perseverance against all odds. On a Sunday afternoon 3 months after the gala, Maya stood by her penthouse window, watching Jordan and Jaden seated across from Ethan at a cafe on the other side of the street. The twins had decided entirely on their own to give their biological father a chance to know them, on their terms, with clear boundaries. "Are you okay with this?" Rita asked, having stopped by with contracts for Maya to review. Maya smiled, feeling genuinely at peace. "I am. It's not about him anymore, or even about me. It's about them making their own choices." In the cafe below, Ethan listened attentively as Jordan explained some complex theory, Jaden occasionally interrupting with addendums. It wasn't a romantic reconciliation or a family reunion. It was something new, born from the ashes of abandonment, but built on the strength Maya had cultivated over years. That evening, as the twins slept and Maya worked on her revolutionary new AI project, she received an email from Ethan. "I can never make up for what I did or recover what I lost. But today I realized something. You never needed to prove your worth to me or anyone. You were always extraordinary. I was just too blind to see. The true insufficiency was always mine." Maya read the message once, then archived it without replying. There was nothing left to say. The cycle of pain that had begun on that cold night in Manhattan finally closed, not with vengeance or reconciliation, but with something more powerful: indifference. She had moved on long ago. From her office in the penthouse, Maya contemplated the Manhattan lights, the city that had once rejected her and now lay at her feet. Tomorrow she would sign a contract with the federal government to implement her AI system in national hospitals. Next week, she would accompany Jordan to his first class at Harvard. The following month, Jaden's patent would be officially registered. Her life was complete, rich with achievements and meaning. And somewhere in the city, Ethan Pierce contemplated the ruins of the empire he had prioritized above everything, finally understanding the true cost of his choices. The New York skyline glittered with promise as Maya watched it from her office window. 3 months had passed since the Metropolitan Gala, yet the aftershocks continued to ripple through Manhattan's social and business circles. The tabloid headlines had finally begun to fade, replaced by more substantive business analyses comparing the divergent trajectories of Johnson Tech and Pierce Holdings. The contrast couldn't be more stark. While Maya's company announced revolutionary partnerships, Ethan's empire contracted under the weight of scandal and mismanagement. Maya's phone buzzed with a notification from her news alerts. Pierce Holdings had announced another quarter of declining profits, their stock down 17% since the gala. She dismissed the alert without emotion. Ethan's business troubles no longer registered as either satisfaction or concern. The indifference itself felt like victory. "The Washington contracts are finalized," Rita announced, entering with a stack of documents. "The federal implementation begins next month, $5 billion over 7 years. Maya nodded, signing the papers with the Mont Blanc pen that had been a gift to herself when Johnson Tech reached its first billion in valuation. "Have we received confirmation on the hospital training schedule?" "All set. 73 hospitals in the first phase, with the remaining 212 in the second and third quarters." As they reviewed implementation details, Maya's thoughts drifted momentarily to the twins, who were spending the afternoon with Ethan at the Museum of Mathematics, their third meeting since the gala. The arrangement had evolved naturally, with Jordan and Jaden setting clear boundaries around when and how they would interact with their biological father. "Are you still okay with the boys seeing him?" Rita asked, following Maya's gaze to the family photo on her desk. "It's their choice," Maya replied. "They're approaching it like scientists studying an unusual specimen. All curiosity, minimal emotional investment." Later that afternoon, Maya watched from her living room window as Ethan's car pulled up to the building. The twins emerged, engaged in animated conversation, with Ethan following a step behind. Even from 12 stories up, Maya could read the body language. The twins confidently leading, Ethan tentative, eager for approval. When Jordan and Jaden entered the apartment, they immediately launched into descriptions of mathematical exhibits and robotics demonstrations they had seen. "The museum director recognized me from the engineering symposium," Jaden reported proudly. "He asked about my neural interface project." "And Professor Chen was there," Jordan added. "He's invited me to join his quantum computing research team this summer." Maya smiled at their enthusiasm. "It sounds like you had a good time." Ethan knew several of the board members, Jaden acknowledged, using his biological father's first name as he had since their initial meeting. "He arranged for us to see the research facilities not open to the public." "He's trying very hard," Jordan observed with clinical detachment. "Statistical analysis suggests he's experiencing significant regret regarding his previous decisions." Maya couldn't help but laugh at her son's analytical approach to emotional situations. "And how do you feel about spending time with him?" The twins exchanged their characteristic glance, that silent communication that had existed between them since infancy. "He has useful connections," Jordan said pragmatically. "And he knows things about our genetic history that might be relevant," Jaden added. "But," they concluded in unison, "he's not our father." The simple declaration warmed Maya's heart. In their 12 years together, she had built something with her sons that no biological connection could supersede, a bond forged through sacrifice, perseverance, and unwavering love. The following week brought news that Pierce Holdings board had voted to temporarily remove Ethan as CEO pending a leadership review. Financial analysts speculated that the company, already weakened by lost contracts and innovation failures, might not survive the additional blow to its reputation. Maya received the news during a video call with Jordan, who was attending his first advanced mathematics seminar at Harvard. Her brilliant son barely looked up from his equations when she mentioned it. "Predictable outcome," he commented. The statistical probability of leadership retention following such public scandal and financial downturn was below 20%. After the call, Maya stood on her terrace contemplating how completely the tables had turned. 14 years ago, she had been the one devastated, jobless, and alone. Now, everything Ethan had valued, his company, his marriage, his reputation, was crumbling, while she stood at the height of success. Yet the victory felt hollow. The girl who had sobbed on the subway after being abandoned at 11 Madison Park might have dreamed of revenge, but the woman Maya had become found no joy in Ethan's downfall. His failure or success no longer defined any part of her story. On a crisp fall morning, Maya found herself walking past the restaurant where everything had changed. 11 Madison Park looked exactly as it had 14 years ago: elegant, exclusive, intimidating. On impulse, she stepped inside, immediately recognized by the maitre d'. "Ms. Johnson, what an honor. Would you like your usual table?" Maya smiled at the irony that she now had a usual table at the restaurant where she had once been made to feel so inadequate. "Just a coffee at the bar, thank you." Seated where she could view the table, their table, Maya sipped her coffee, searching for any emotional resonance. There was none. The place that had housed her greatest humiliation now held no power over her. Her phone chimed with a message from Ethan. "The boys mentioned you're signing the federal contract today. Congratulations. You've built something remarkable." Maya read it without responding. These messages had become a regular occurrence. Ethan's attempts to establish some connection, to demonstrate his admiration for what she had accomplished. She never replied, having nothing to say that would matter to either of them. That afternoon, in a ceremony at the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., Maya signed the landmark contract implementing Johnson Tech's AI diagnostic system in all federal hospitals. As cameras flashed and officials praised the technology that would save countless American lives, Maya thought of the tiny apartment in the Bronx where it had all begun. 2 babies sleeping in a shared crib while their exhausted mother coded through the night. 3 days later, Jordan called from Harvard with news that he had been invited to present his research at an international mathematics conference. The same day, Jaden's robotics patent was officially approved, making him one of the youngest patent holders in the country. The Sunday following these achievements, Maya observed from her window as the twins met Ethan at their usual cafe. This time, she noticed something different. Jaden was showing Ethan his patent documentation, animated in his explanations of the technology. It was the first time she had seen her son voluntarily share something meaningful with his biological father. "Is that progress?" Rita asked, joining Maya at the window. "It's their journey to navigate," Maya replied. "I've never wanted to punish Ethan by keeping the boys from him. I just wanted them to be strong enough to decide what relationship, if any, they wanted." That evening, after helping Jaden prepare his presentation for an upcoming tech conference, Maya received another email from Ethan. Unlike his previous messages, this one felt different, more reflective, less seeking approval. "I watched our sons today. Yes, I know they are fully yours in every way that matters, and saw how extraordinarily you've raised them. Not just their intelligence, which clearly combines your determination with Pierce genetics, but their character, their confidence, their kindness. You've given them everything I would have denied them with my narrow vision of what constituted success. I never deserved any of you, but they deserved so much better than me. You were always extraordinary, Maya. I was just too blinded by privilege and prejudice to see it. The true insufficiency was always mine." Maya read the message once, feeling the finality of its truth. Without responding, she archived it, closing that chapter permanently. There was nothing more to say, no more emotional debt to collect or pay. The cycle was complete. Standing on her terrace that night, watching Manhattan's lights shimmer beneath her, Maya felt a profound sense of peace. She had transcended the narrative of the abandoned young mother, the struggling single parent, the woman with something to prove. Her life now was defined not by what had been taken from her, but by what she had created: a revolutionary company, 2 remarkable sons, and a legacy that would far outlast the pain of rejection. As the city lights twinkled below, Maya reflected that the greatest revenge hadn't been humiliating Ethan or surpassing his empire, but simply building a life so extraordinary that the pain of abandonment had become merely a footnote in her triumphant story. Definitive proof that she had always been and would always be more than enough. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.